Welcome to another episode of Industrial Amputation, where you can always expect the unexpected. Today, we have the pleasure of hanging out with Dave McAnally of the Chicago industrial metal band Derision Cult. The latest EP, Notes Part 2, released yesterday, Friday, March 14th. Dave, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I've been watching the show for a while now, and
Yeah,
yeah, you guys asked some good questions. So excited to do this.
right on, man. And nice shirt, by the way. Little shout out
Yeah,
to
I
Levi.
got my. I've worn
We
this
love you,
on
brother.
stage twice. This has been like my stage shirt too. I always end up wearing it. So I
Yeah,
got Charles on stage with me, so they're
yeah.
not.
That's for my plan too. I'm supposed to be doing a little tour with Benign Affections in a while, and that's
All
one of
right,
the
on.
planned stage shirts too. Yeah. So that's fucking awesome, man. Right on.
The band was originally a solo project. How did you end up
Yeah,
working with members of Cyanotic, and what do they add to your music?
yeah. So yeah, you're right. I should probably. So let me go back to kind of before because I think there's a couple Chicago connections that happen here. So I grew up in Iowa and I moved to Chicago in 2004 with the
Yeah.
intention of like because I was in the Des Moines metal scene, kind of the same world that kind of Slipknot came out of.
Yeah.
That the Mr. Bungle thing was really big then, but that's kind of the world I came from and
Yeah.
came to Chicago with the intention of like, oh, I'll find some guys here. And I was already a big Wax Trax fan. And Chris Randall from Sister Machine Gun was
Oh, right on.
kind of a cool pen pal mentor of mine. I have shoot, I don't I have one of his Parker Night Flies, but it's actually over at Glitchman
Oh,
right now.
dude, right on.
But so I came here with the intent, Chris would help kind of connect me to some people, and as fate would have it, 1 year and a half later, he moved to Oregon, and I just kind of lost. I just kind of drifted away from music. I got really big into the ad industry, and kind of
Yeah.
just focused on the career stuff. Got big into triathlons, and I actually it was through Jim Marcus, believe it or not, that I kind of got back into it because Jim was working at a same ad agency I was. And I remember it was right around the time that Go Fight started that this all kind of went down. And which I think that first Go Fight album is one of my favorite things he's done. I'm a huge fan of that. And I really like that last Star Wars was a huge influence to me, but I really like Convenience too. And so what I learned talking to Jim was, and I kind of felt like, well, you got to focus on your career or music, but Jim just kind of inadvertently showed me you can make really cool music and not get fixated on career pathing and stuff because he's a very successful type font guy and he's a
Yeah.
very he was running the creative for McDonald's at the time, believe it or not. And I just kind of doing that, I he kind of inspired me to be like making music for the sake of music. And that's
Yeah.
so that's kind of where Derision Cult started. And I had a lot of feelings at the time about I was getting involved in a lot of campaigns that were designed to like kind of push people's buttons with the intention of pissing off another crowd. In other words, like if I
Yeah.
can get a certain crowd to react a certain way, the people that I really want to market to over here are going to
Yeah.
listen. We did a lot of campaigns like that with like Nike. Right around the time the Me Too stuff was getting big, I saw a lot of brands like deliberately pissing off,
Hmm.
whether it's concern, it didn't matter who it was, but the point was that
Yeah.
kind of strategy, enragement equals engagement. And,
Yeah.
to your
World we
point
live in. Yeah.
was, yeah, yeah. And so, but it felt wrong. It felt a lot
Hmm.
of people didn't realize this was happening to them. And I had some things I wanted to say about that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how Derision became an outlet for me. And so I was just kind of making demos and stuff, nothing big. But then I had started to get a little bit of traction. I was on one of the Electronic Saviors albums, which is actually where I crossed paths with Sean originally. And I had one album that started to get some buzz, got some reviews, and what I realized is, I'm a guitar player at heart, and I didn't want to sound like a guitar player who just got a drum machine one day anymore. And
Yeah.
I knew that I needed, and just such a vibrant community here in Chicago. There's so many artists I look up to, and I just wanted to kind of branch out more. And actually, my friend Gabe Wilkinson he writes for Regen. He's on has his project Microwaved. Sean had done some things for him, and I was kind of just chatting with him about this, like, yeah, I'd really like to. He's like, well, you need to talk to Sean, and
Yeah.
it just that's how basically how the connection was made.
Yeah.
And it turned out Sean lives maybe half hour from me, and in Chicago terms, that's pretty close,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. We're talking about Sean Payne right now.
Sean Payne, yeah, from I should have mentioned. And
Yeah.
so I brought some demos to him, and at the time he was kind of rebooting some things with Cyanotic, and we just hit it off. This is like right in the middle of right on the onset of the pandemic, and so and then we were talking before this started. I'd quit drinking at that point, so I wasn't like hanging out with my old bar friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And Sean's not a drinker either, so we just kind of hit it off that way. And
Yeah.
so we ended up just hanging out at Glitch Mode at his place a lot. And I think to bring it around to what you asked, Joey, Sean really has helped me think a lot more about the beats, and the rhythm of things. Sean's a really you hear it on how dense and elaborate cyanotic conformco music is, but he's very, very good at finding building layers and pulling stuff out and stuff that this is kind of the tutelage of Jamie Duffy.
Yeah.
I think really looms large in his productions.
Yeah. No,
And
it's incredible.
yeah,
Everything
yeah.
he does, man, it's just absolutely fucking brilliant. I mean,
Yeah, and I learned a lot about so I think becoming a lot more beat oriented. Sean had a
mm,
big impact on that, and letting not filling up every single space with guitar riffs, because you actually make that can actually work to the detriment of an arrangement. And I just just a dumb old boy from Iowa. I didn't think about that stuff, but we really liked the songs, and we started working on we've got a number of things now that we've kind of got irons in the fire for, but that was a big one. And the other one that I think Sean, I was thinking about this. I think Sean's really been helpful in slowing. You can slow down to speed up, if that makes sense. In other
yeah.
words, we do a lot of like putting tracks down for a few weeks or a month even, and when you come back to it, you hear it different. And I've
Yeah.
learned that like I need that. There's people like Prince and David Bowie, and Stephen Archer makes a lot of stuff where
Yeah.
he can crank things out quick. And I think I need, I am not one of those.
Yeah.
I think, time. And that's one of the things that Sean really embraces is, kind of giving time. And that's where he comes
Fucking
back and
awesome.
hears things differently. And that's a
Yeah.
big part of how he works. And I've adopted that too.
Yeah. Oh, right on. That's fucking awesome. Yeah, I have similar issues, and I don't know if it's ADHD or what, but I do like to I spend a little time here. Sometimes I like to just jump in and get it finished, and then or what I think is finished, and then I'm like later I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
this with it,
Well, I think, yeah. And I think I kind of have you know, a desire to complete things, like,
Yeah.
put a pin in this and we did it.
Yeah.
And I think that can work. That's a
Yeah.
good characteristic to have, especially in
Yeah.
like business and stuff. But
But yeah, but
I,
it's a frustrating taskmaster is what it is.
yeah. And you know
You
what the
know,
reality
for
is,
me anyway. I mean,
and
I
when,
know there's people that work really well under that system. And
yeah.
Klaus Larson is a fucking great example of that. That motherfucker can just
Mhm.
get in there and go, and oh my God, and everything he does is fucking gold. It's
Yeah, he did a
incredible.
remix for us, and yeah, he turned it around really. Both him and Steven Archer turned him
Yeah,
around
and
really,
Stephen
really
Archer too.
quick.
Yeah.
But I think the way glitch mode, it's not like we have deadlines that we're very committed to, and so it functions very much like a collective. So I would imagine it'd be different. There's like hey, we want to ship your album on this date, and
Yeah.
come hell or high water, things that there's nothing like that. So it's like, why put that on you?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So the core lineup for this release is Sean Payne, Brad Houston, and Jesse Hunt. Who's bringing what to where?
Yeah. Well, I kind of started with basic demos, and the longer I work with these guys, the more basic my demos get because um, I think it makes it easier for them to bring things.
Yeah.
Sean, usually the way it'll work is I'll bring a track to Sean. We'll sit down and kind of, okay, let's look at the stems top to bottom. Here's what works, here's what doesn't. Brad is and Sean, he kind of, I would say his kind of a superpower is he's really good at figuring out, does this track move the listener through it in a engaging way. And
Wow.
sometimes that's the beat. This is the stuff I've learned. Sometimes that's
Yeah.
the beat. Sometimes it's, hey, maybe we pull the bass back in this part so it feels a little more suspended in midair right here and comes,
Yeah.
and we'll think through that kind of stuff. Brad, you know, I don't he he doesn't get a lot of credit for this, but he's actually he's a very harmonic music theory guy, and so he's
Oh,
really good at finding different chords that sound funky against each other and stuff. So
yeah.
we'll create tension that way. And
What's
then
he playing?
he'll do
Right.
mostly programming,
Okay.
but a lot of just kind of engineering samples and stuff. And that's kind of the role Jesse plays too.
Oh, neat.
Jesse's kind of more, he kind of comes in mostly on the live stuff. But yeah, Brad and I are guitar players kind of first and foremost. But
Yeah.
I think Brad's a lot more of I'm more of kind of like a punk rock, bash the shit out of a guitar guy. And he's more of Dream Theater, very thinking about,
Oh,
that kind of stuff. And
that's such a great combination, man. It
yeah,
really,
yeah. I'm more of
it
a big
feels good together too. I mean,
I'm a big dumb Viking, and then he's like, all right, let's think this through. And but then, on top of that, well, we brought Reeves Gabrels from The Cure and David Bowie. He plays leads on a couple things, and he
yeah,
was on part one as well. And that's a real bucket list thing because I was a huge fan of him going back to Tin Machine,
yeah,
and
no, for sure.
the fact
Actually,
that
that yeah, me too, big time. He's one of my favorite guitarists since the Tin Machine era. I got to see both of
yeah.
his tours,
Oh,
and they
did
were,
you?
and
Wow.
I was right up close, and so yeah, up close and personal, getting to
Is
watch
that
him do
back when
his
he'd
thing.
have the thing of dildos and he plays?
Yeah, yes, and yeah, yeah, I put him sort of in the same category, the same class as Robert Fripp and Adrian
Yes.
Belew. I mean, I've always been more impressed by guitarists that don't necessarily sound like guitarists. They can do
Hmm.
different things, and they're so fucking fearless.
Right.
And yeah, that's fucking amazing. The Yeah, and you got to work with him on Mercenary Notes 1, and then on this follow-up
Yeah,
for the
he's done.
Warning Signs and Radiation Blues.
Yeah, and then on part one, he did Slaves Rebuild, and then we had Death Flood, which Chris
Yeah,
Connolly sang
with
on,
Chris
which
Conley on as well. Yeah, no, fucking
yeah, that
fantastic.
was really a cool. We just kind of went nuts with that
Yeah.
for
So
it's like
how did you end up having Reeves Gabrels?
yeah.
That
It's yeah, we're kind of like the Forrest Gump of industrial companies. But no, what happened was yeah, so I actually, when Reeves left David Bowie's band, he had a solo, he put out
Mhm.
some solo stuff,
Yes, he
and
did.
I followed it really closely. And he had a forum and everything. So I kind of like had sort of you know, one of those guitar nerds that I played Parker's because of him. And so, his profile, that got really big again when he joined the Cure.
Yeah.
Um, and I just kind of always had it in my head that, like, man, because Reeves would actually do guitar lessons for a while. Like, you could
Yeah.
on Zoom, and I didn't, when he was doing that, I didn't have the money to do it. But I always kind of had in my head that, like, oh man, it'd be cool someday if well, when we were doing the first Mercenary Notes, that was when, remember that Omicron wave that of COVID. I think that's what it's
Yeah.
called. That one.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Well,
one that sounded like a video game. Yes.
yeah, right. Well, it just so happened that was when The Cure was mixing the new album. And Reeves lives in upstate New York, and they're all doing that in London. And I just, hey, I'm just gonna email this guy and see. And I, told him what I was up
Damn.
to. And I really, really loved what he did on that Sister Machine Gun album,
Yeah.
Metropolis. Like just
Yeah.
brought that spacey tweaked thing. And
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, that made that album would not have it really made the album
Yeah.
for a guy like me. And I knew I remember at the time he really loved industrial music. Like he wanted Bowie to continue on with Earthling. So I knew he like had a soft spot for this kind of stuff. And so I just reached out and just said, hey, here's what I'm doing. And by that point, we already had Chris Connolly on board for Deaf Blood. So that gave me a bit of bona fides to be able to say, I've got, and it just so happened, apparently Chris and Reeves were going to do something in the late 90s that just never materialized. So
Wow.
Reeves was like excited to and he really liked the track. And we hit it off pretty good, just kind of working, it was all emailing back and forth at that point. But yeah, it just turned out he's the funny thing about Reeves is and I you guys have probably seen some of this doing the podcast, but some of those people that have really high profile gigs like that, you would just never know it. I mean, they treat everybody, they don't see celebrity, and Reeves
Right.
is a guy like that.
That's fucking.
I mean, you would just
Yeah.
never think, dude, this guy, I was asking him I was referencing things from that he remember that time you did Scary Monsters on the Earthling tour? And, and it's just a trip for me to
Oh
be
my God.
talking
Yeah.
to him like that. But to him, he,
Yeah.
and we
No,
can
I
put
think
him
that's
in,
what I liked about him when Tin Machine came out. I mean, everything about that band was so everyman,
yeah. And I
and
think,
and they felt approachable in a way that I didn't expect Bowie to be approachable at that time,
yeah,
and I think Reeves had a lot to do with that. Well, I mean, I'm sure Bowie was already approachable, but I mean the giving that aesthetic when they were playing and stuff, because he was
yeah,
not gregarious. He's very low key, fucking doing his thing and just being,
right,
like I
right.
said, fucking fearless, man. It's
Well, Reeves is really, yeah, I mean, he comes from that. He was a working player,
yeah,
played in all the Boston clubs and kind of got plucked out of obscurity for David. But yeah, and then Tin Machine, it was like, what was that? Was the Salzburg, the Bowie's or Iggy's band was the other two guys, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. From Iggy,
you
from
know,
yeah,
they kind of
Hunting
came from
Tony,
a bit of
yeah.
a pedigree themselves. So yeah,
Yeah,
you're
they
right.
did,
Reeves
absolutely.
was
And their
the
dad, Soupy Sales from the
that's right.
fucking game show. Yeah, it's a fucking wild,
You
wild
know,
time.
funny enough, I have to say this because you're the first guy I've talked to that's a big Tin Machine fan.
Yeah.
My favorite Tin Machine song is "Goodbye, Mr. Ed," which is
That
it's
is
off
a
Tin
fucking
Machine 2,
brilliant goddamn song. Yes, it
and
is. Absolutely.
but
Yes.
it's already Tin Machine, but that's a deep
Yeah,
cut for even Tin
it
Machine. But
really is.
and
Yeah.
I've told Reeves that. In fact, he did layer. There is some there. You can't really hear it in the foreground, but there is a background sort of
Mhm.
we inspired by Goodbye Mr. Ed, like that droney guitar thing. He put
Yeah.
that in there. What's funny about Reeves is we uh we did uh we did a couple pretty wild animated videos, one for Warning Signs and one for Deaf Blood, and we made cartoon characters out of Chris Connolly and Reeves. And
Right
Reeves is
on.
very excited for us to make a cartoon of him because and we the way you make those things, we worked with this company Empire Animate. You design all the characters, and then
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, animation takes a long time. I learned
Yeah.
this the hard way. But months and months of, hey, we got 10 seconds here. Anyways, Reeves apparently, in all the photo shoots with Tin Machine and Bowie, um, Bowie was always really keen to, or he was really wanted to make sure he looked like he was just as tall as Reeves.
Yeah.
He said Bowie's actually about 5'8", and Reeves is 6'2". Like Reeves is a tall guy.
Yeah,
And so
yeah, he's taller than I would have thought. Yeah, and I believe
yeah, so
Bowie's like 5'10". I think Bowie's a couple inches taller than me. I'm 5'8",
oh
and
yeah, oh well, I just
yeah.
remember he was very excited because we drew him and designed him to be actually his well of course Chris Connolly's 6'4", so it's like, and
Yeah,
Sean's 6'4", and
no,
so
yeah.
I look like, I'm shorter than all of them, but he was excited to finally get to be the tall guy, and it turns out he's not even the tallest. But we did design his characters so he was noticeably taller than everybody.
Oh,
So,
that's fucking awesome,
it's
man.
so funny though, because with glitch mode, I'm 5'10". Sean's six, yeah, I think Sean's 6'4".
Yeah.
But
Wow.
Brad's 6'1" or 6'2". Jesse's at least 6 feet, and yeah, everyone in the glitch mode camp's really tall except for me. But
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I know
anyways,
that.
yeah,
I know that feeling.
um, but yeah, so yeah, Reeves, total awesome guy to work with. He's very like I said, not no airs or pretensions. And you know who else is like that is well, Justin Broderick has done a couple mixes for us now.
Godflesh. Yeah.
Godflesh, yeah, and it's so funny we joke because he's consummate pro and all that, but makes music that sounds like it's from the pit of hell, and he's just the sweetest, nicest guy when you meet him.
Yeah, that remix he does on what is it?
He did
Warning
warning
signs. Warning
signs.
signs.
Yeah,
It's
that's
incredible. It's
insane.
absolutely incredible.
He
Yeah.
did one for Cyanotic that is going to be coming out here probably in the next couple months. We were just listening to it last night, and yeah, wait to hear that.
Oh,
It's,
right on.
it's still nothing changes, and yeah, he made a crazy bass song out of that, and yeah, Justin did Slaves on Mercenary Part One, and Cyanotic did Your Hope Failed. We thought for
Yeah.
part two it'd be fun to flip it and have Justin do the really fast song and
Yeah.
Cyanotic do kind of
They
the
got
slower one.
Radiation Blues on this one, which is
Yeah.
also just fucking incredible.
Oh, thanks, man.
Actually, back to Reeves for just a second. What was the most important thing you've taken from working with him?
Timing. One thing about Reeves that I was I mean, I'm a I've been playing guitar for years and years, but Reeves is very meticulous about things being dead nuts on the beat. And he seems like he's just kind of this loose cannon, when you hear it, but he's a very rhythmic, very tight player.
Yeah, he really is.
That the other thing I took from Reeves is he's very he'll get, like, when he works with us, here's where we were thinking the solo would be, but he adds a lot of like ambience and noises you wouldn't think are guitars, and he's very much approaches things like an arranger. He has with us. But I think the other thing with him is just the just uh just no airs of pretension. That's in my for me, he's like the highest profile person that I've worked with. And we did the mercenary mixes between part one and part two, and had all kinds of people, and everyone was really cool. But I just I really kind of, if there's one thing I took from that experience, or the experience of working with Reeves, it's that you know you can really make an impression on people by just being kind and respectful. And
That
his
is a
wife
beautiful
Susan
thing.
is really cool. His
Yeah,
and they always plug stuff, and they don't have to do that, but Reeves,
yeah,
Reeves is always quick to share anything about what we're doing and stuff. And
it's fucking awesome. I,
just
I'm
a good
damn
dude.
impressed. I really am. That's freaking awesome. You
Thanks,
do
man.
have more guests on this one, as we were saying. You've got a Radiation Blues mixed by Cyanotic, Justin Broderick,
Yeah.
doing Warning Signs. You've got cowpunk pioneer Pete Berwick, and
Yeah.
an
So
amazing Brazilian artist,
Yeah.
musician named Ronaldo Rodriguez
Rodriguez, yeah,
adding
did that
just
organ
the
solo.
most wicked fucking organ solo on Joker's
Yeah.
Wild and the Kings and Kings Are Dead.
Yeah.
Now, these and the stuff with Reeves and the other guests that you had on part one, are these in-person collaborations or are you doing this long distance?
Well, Reeves is yeah. Reeves and Justin are long distance. Reeves is in upstate New York, and Justin's over in Wales. Pete's here in Chicago. Ronaldo, I knew him through a friend, and but he lives in Brazil.
Yeah,
So,
my roommate's from Brazil, and
all right on.
I'm learning Brazilian Portuguese from
Oh,
him.
very cool.
So yeah,
No, he was just
yeah,
that came about, and I had I'm a huge like it is what it is. I just love old Uriah Heep, like those first three Uriah Heep. The ones with David on them are just
yeah,
amazing. Anyways, I just the Ken Hensley like crazy organ stuff, and I just
uh-huh.
had visions like, man, that'd be cool if we had something like that, and
That's it's
like the
fucking
Doors
brilliant.
meets, and
Yeah,
so I explained this like, here's what I'm looking for, and almost like telepathy, that guy just nailed it, and
yeah.
it's
That's
cool because like
that
it
is fucking awesome, man. It is it's a great track. I mean, you guys
oh,
really
thanks.
outdid yourselves on it. This one, you originally demoed Joker's Wild like 10 years ago, and Sean sort of reworked some of the drums. Yeah.
It was one that I demoed a while ago, and it was one of the first tracks that and Abdication Day are the first two that we really kind of let's take a look and see what we think. But yeah, Sean did. It had a whole different intro, had like a weird bridge in it, and Sean is, like I said, I think a thing he really his what I've taken from him that he really pays a lot of attention to is like, is this song moving the listener through this thing or not? And if it gets
Yeah.
boring or it stalls or it feels like, this it's you kind of feel like you're dead in the water. He
Yeah.
he picks up on all that, and
It
so
doesn't have that.
yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
it might
so
have, it probably did at one point, but those are some of the things he'll.
no, no, I mean, what he's Jesus Christ, man. The song, that track has a groove that is very hard to deny. I mean, you get lost in it. It's going to be a dance floor staple for fucking sure. It's going to be a
Oh,
dance
thanks. Well, that
as
starts.
well.
Well, originally that started with I wanted to kind of like emulate sort of that call and response Chicago blues thing, da-na-na-na-na,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
like
you've got this sort of Revco Linger Ficken vibe going in those songs. It's just fucking so nice. Um,
oh yeah, well that's cool. I'm thanks for saying that. We really kind of try to embrace the Chicago,
yeah,
the Chicago
it
sound in
feels
what we
so
do.
very familiar with what, while not sounding old. It sounds new and yeah, it's
Oh,
got a
thanks,
those
man.
songs have a hook that is just incredible. And
Oh, thanks. So I'm glad you said that because I that was something we really are cognizant of is, hey, we're Chicagoans. This is
yeah,
who and it was
yeah.
very, very, you know, very
No, that one and
intention.
Radiation Blues are both, I think, going to have big impacts on the dance floors out there. They're two incredible
Oh,
fucking
cool,
tracks.
man. Thanks.
What is it? Influence is another one that kind of goes that way.
Yeah,
Um,
Pete was on that too.
yeah, yeah,
So the story with Pete is he was in our video for Slaves Rebuild, and we just kind of learned Pete's a fascinating guy, man. He's just such a character. It was kind of like, dude, we got to record this guy because
yeah,
he like how he is on the. It's like how he talks. Like he talks in like old.
yeah,
He sounds like an old beatnik guy when you
yeah.
talk to him, and he just has like all these interesting little phrases, and so and he's an author too, and just through being on that video, we hanging out with him all day on the set. This is where I learned, holy shit, this guy's like kind of a big deal when it comes to
Yeah.
cowpunk and stuff. And so that was really neat. But he's also an actor. He's playing Frank Sinatra in a movie that comes out later this year alongside Frank
Wow.
Langella. And it's
Wow.
all about, I didn't know this, but apparently there was an attempt to assassinate JFK in Chicago the year before he actually did die.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was all orchestrated by the mob and stuff. So Pete's in a movie about that. And
Oh, wow.
somebody of note plays JFK, and I can't remember who he
Yeah.
said it was. But so anyways, he's doing all this stuff too. And
Yeah.
so he's just this character. And we are like, all right, we gotta, that was Sean's idea, he thought,
It's
you
a great
should reach
idea.
out to Pete and you
Yeah.
should see if he'll just scat some stuff.
Yeah.
And he
No,
did, and he kind of picked where to deploy him, on the
yeah.
tracks.
No, it's fucking awesome. So you've got a really, really great talent for drawing collaborators. And I mean caliber collaborators.
Oh, thanks.
Who's someone you would really like to work with but haven't?
Well, I really want to do a track with Jim Marcus, and we're just kind of like ships passing in the night sometimes on that
Yeah.
stuff. Because
Jim,
Jim
if you're
is a
listening.
he knows, But Jim's I love his vocals. My first kind of he came into my orbit through Sister Machine Gun. When
Yeah.
I first heard Wired, it was like, man, who's that badass guy singing on the chorus? And then that's how I got into Die Warzone stuff. But I've
Yeah.
always been a huge we fan of his vocals, so I'd love to do something with him. We did a remix of the Die Warzone track, I Am a Camera, that just
Yeah.
came out. And that was a lot of fun to do, just to kind of put big guitars to Jim's vocals. And Jim, it's funny because Jim will tell you he's not really a metal guy, but man, I am. I'll put some heavy metal guitars against those vocals, and we'll make something big and heavy. But so I'd love to do some
Man,
stuff like that.
that'd be
Jim's a
so
big
awesome.
one. Yeah, no, and but he does all our art and all the
Yeah.
logos and graphics. So we work in that regard. But yeah, whenever that comes up, I always think of that. I'd love to work with Jim. I'd love to. There's some of those outlaw country guys out there right now that I think would be a lot of fun to do something
Shooter
with.
Jennings.
Shooter. Well, we tried to get Shooter on Radiation Blues, and that we couldn't make that.
Wow.
Couldn't bring that together. But Whitey Morgan is
Oh,
big
that's a
Whitey
good one.
Morgan fan.
Yeah.
And I really, yeah, and in fact, Shooter just produced his last album. But I'm pretty big into that world too. So I'd love to do. I think like a song in the style of Radiation Blues with like James McMurtry would be really interesting.
Oh,
James
yeah.
is he's by far, I think, one of the greatest lyricists alive right now. And I mean, he's just one of those Jim Croce type characters, and just real earnest. Anybody who's like writing really great stuff right now, like Jason Isbell or any of these real deep cut singer songwriter guys, will tell you he's like a huge influence. And I think it would be really cool to work with him and adapt a song like that to James's style. So when I think about collaborators, and those are hard sells to people like that, because all right, we're gonna make some really crazy banging industrial songs, but this will be cool. So but I would like to cross genres and do some interesting things like that. I'd love to do more with Reeves. Everyone I collaborate with so far, I'd love to keep it going. There's another kind of collective here in Chicago called the Joy Thieves, who my good buddy Dan
Mhm.
Milligan
Yeah.
overseas, and Dan and I have done some stuff together.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
And
Dan's fucking awesome. Yeah.
yeah, he produced kind of a grunge metal album I did with a buddy of mine called Purgatory Line,
Oh,
and
I'll have
played
to check
drums
that
on
out.
it. And I've done
Purgatory
some
line.
yeah, Purgatory Line. And I've done some Joy Thieves things, but Dan has I, he has a really good knack for keeping things going and stuff. And I think that's
Yeah.
cool. So I like everything we've done so far to not be one and done. If people are into it, if it works out, there's downtime with the Cure. I was saying, a lot of what's worked out with Reeves is, when he wasn't able to travel because that Omicron band is just kind of
Yeah.
sitting down. So, hey, what would you think about laying down some industrial guitars? And
Yeah. Just light him up. That's fucking awesome, man. Damn. Joey, I'm sorry. I've been like completely monopolizing this.
You're good,
Let's
man.
go
So
back to where
this
we were.
This EP is a follow-up to your 2022 release, Mercenary Notes Part 1.
Yeah.
You feel like you wanted to write a follow-up to that?
Well, the thing was, the original plan was to do this all as one big album, and we had it was actually a couple months into hanging with Sean, we kind of made a decision. Some of the songs kind of live in similar sonic spaces, and it just seemed like this would be a lot. It would make a lot more sense to the world if we split these up. The part one, part two, just it made sense since they all kind of came out of the same demo sessions that it should be a sequel like that.
Yeah,
So that was kind of the reason it started, or why we rolled it out that way.
yeah,
We did write some new, like Where Are You Now? Well, Radiation Blues. We knew we wanted to have kind of a sequel to Slaves on this, and that's what that became.
yeah,
We added Warning Signs kind of later in the process to kind of round it out, but that was the impetus. I think in terms of styles, I feel like part one's a little more it's a little darker, I feel like, whereas this one has a little bit more sarcasm and humor in it. Jim Marcus actually picked up on that. Um Here, let me show you something. Sorry. I have to reach over here, but when he did the art, he actually, so this is what part one looks like. And
yeah,
he
yeah.
actually deliberately put like this sort of hand right here to give it more in lighter
Oh,
shades, so it has more of a humanity to it, which I think the album kind of does. There's more
fucking brilliant, man.
sarcasm in the samples, and we injected some, like, well, when you were talking about some of the Revco things, I feel like there's some of that in it that didn't really exist in the first one. So we didn't take ourselves as seriously on part two. I think we're willing to inject more humor and some of that kind of Revco Lard vibe into this that was not as present on part one. So that's, to
Yeah.
me, when I hear them, that's what I hear the biggest difference.
Oh, right
Does
on.
the way in which you write songs differ now than when you first started Derision Cult? And if so, how?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not as when I started out, I mean, as a guitar player, I kind of came into this through by way of Metallica and Megadeth and things like that. And then
Yeah,
as we were talking, Reeves kind of turned all that on its head for me. So the early stuff I was writing was really like thrash metal with, drum machines. I've expanded, I think, a lot more in terms of the beats and the rhythm than
yeah,
I did, before. So that's probably the biggest change. I'm a lot more cognizant of how to make songs breathe more. Um, and what I mean by that is, like, I think a lot of songwriters do this. There's a real tendency to want to fill all the space,
oh yeah,
like I got to make words all right here. And then, I think working with Sean and really, because he approaches things a lot more like a DJ, like, how are people going to dance to this? I, I didn't really do that, or I hadn't thought of songs that way just because I'm like this metal guy, and so, but embracing that, and I really, part of working with Glitch Mode is, I'm been there picking apart some of the Cyanotic songs. You start to see what sort of makes that stuff tick, and
yeah,
a lot of it has to do with, the tempos are a certain way because, hey, these are the things people can dance to. Old rivet heads aren't going to sit there and pogo to 160 BPM song, so, but that
not
is
without
important
throwing
to the
up.
feel and the vibe. I think I'm a lot less I'm a lot more simplistic, Joey, to be honest. I think a core essence of industrial music is, which I want to I really enjoy leaning into more, is it's by virtue of what it is, it's not meant to be prog rock, and it's
Yeah,
not meant to be lots of tempo changes. That kind of ruins the hypnotic feel. And so I'm really trying to embrace that more than I would have, even 5 years ago.
right
Cool.
on.
So, like, what can someone expect from a Derision Cult live performance?
We're pretty intense. The I think one of the things that I definitely wanted to make sure was carried over from what works well for cyanotic. Sorry about my light here. I keep my screen
That's
keeps
all
going.
right.
But well, I love having Jesse up front of the stage. I think that's a really cool aspect when you could see a drummer flailing around right up front versus kind of behind the crowd, or behind us. Um, so far, we've been lucky enough to be able to bring our video gear with us, and we put a lot of thought into that, so it's pretty immersive. But live, I would say what's kind of unique is Brad and I kind of get our inner Iron Maiden on. So there's a lot of twin guitar stuff.
Right
And
on.
playing off those things, which I don't think a lot of people do. I'll play some acoustic guitar and the like radiation blues, I'll play an acoustic. And that's worked out pretty well. But yeah, I think you know, there's not a lot of moping around type songs when Derision Cole plays.
Yeah.
Are you playing any live shows soon?
Yeah, we're working on some things in the fall that are still kind of coming together, so I don't want to oversay too much, but it's summer. It's been a little tough, just kind of all around. We'll definitely do some things in Chicago, but and it'll all work out. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty with like the economics of touring right now, it seems like,
No
and
doubt.
so we're navigating some of that. But I have faith. I love playing live. I love playing with the guys. It's we've had some good runs so far.
Fucking awesome. So, now this release kind of came out of some tragedy, or came on the heels of some tragedy.
Yeah.
Um, Sean's wife killed in a car accident, and another friend of yours
Hmm.
to murder. Fucking hell. I remember when this was going on towards the end of the Skinny Puppy final tour. And
That's right.
yeah, so is there anything you want to discuss about that?
Oh, well, yeah, that's I'm kind of like you. That was a hell of a thing to go through. I got the call, Brad called me.
Yeah,
Because Brad was house sitting their cat, while Sean and Stacy went up to Minneapolis to watch that show, and that's a call you don't expect to have coming. But at that
sure.
point, all we knew was there's a really bad accident. Sean was, no one really knew he was in the hospital and he was alive, but we knew for sure Stacy hadn't made it. And there's about a week there where Sean was basically gone. I no one knew what his brain capacity, it was a really scary time. And, you make all these plans and, just kind of in a split second, everything sort of gets kind of thrown out the window. And so, um, miraculously, Sean, I mean, he had broken ribs and, some things in that regard, but, no brain damage or anything. He was, he was okay. And he was out of the hospital maybe a week after that happened, and that all. But then when he got home, going through something like that, there was, obviously just kind of the processing of it, but he was really gung-ho to work. There was a real, I think, and I don't think he would say I'm speaking out of turn saying this, but he kind of came out of that, at first feeling like, he's lucky to be here, and then, a thing that, so I think he had a real drive to like, I got to make the most of my time. And so right away, because the derision cult stuff, after part one, was still kind of a ways out. Like we had a lot of work to do, tracks we knew we wanted to write and things. And he just went really hard to get that After Effect album out. And, I would say that was probably about 70% done when that accident happened. And it was just, and, mentioning earlier, one of the ways Sean works is, okay, let's give it 2 weeks and come back to it. And so there's a lot of sessions like that, but also just a lot of just hanging out. We watched a lot of Joe Bob. You know, just kind of hang out, being human a little bit, without any real, let's just order some pizza. And, you know, I've since probably out pizzaed Sean. In fact, because I'm always wanting to order pizza, and the glitch mode guys thoroughly hate pizza now, thanks to me. But, anyways, yeah, so that happened, and things started kind of, it was what it was. And, you know, there's really no instruction manual for going through some of that kind of stuff. So, just dealing with the states and things, we all tried to help as best we could, but then kind of what you were saying earlier. So that was in May. Then Skinny Puppy came around in November, and a really buddy of mine for like 25 years, um, who, I'd been to every Nine Inch Nails show with that I think I've ever been to. And, big industrial, he's a huge industrial fan too, and knew we were all, he was with us all at that show. And that they have what they call the Flyer Boys in Chicago, who kind of have like fake charities, and they try to raise money for when you're walking out of venues or games or whatever. And he one of them kind of accosted him and hit him, and he fell, and he died, kind of in an altercation out of that show. And everyone, Sean was there for that too. And, kind of came out and saw the scene. And Drew, yeah, so he passed away. And that was kind of that was a crazy, we had, shows lined up. So we, had to go play shows, both Cyanotic and Derision. But, I think, hadn't those things happened, we probably would have released this stuff a lot earlier. But, I also think that, kind of going through that, that like how Sean was talking about having, what I get from Sean is, he didn't come out of that and just kind of, woe was me. It was like, hey, we really got to take advantage of the time we have here, is kind of how it sort of felt. So, like I said, kind of hang around being human. But, then we just kind of worked really hard. They got that KMFDM tour last year. And so Cyanotic, really kind of put everything they had into that. And then we put on Technoir last summer, which was quite the science experiment, and doing a show completely unorthodox. We hired out this event space, and kind of as an homage to that last year, we thought, man, what if, you're talking about collaborations. So we got Joe Bob Briggs to come into Chicago and MC the thing for us.
Oh my God, dude.
Jamie, we had Jason Novak come in, do an Aki Crack set. A couple of our friends from Athema Noise and Nevada Hardware played sets too. And we rented out this venue that it used to be Al Capone's private club. So it was like, it's totally Art Deco. And
man,
it looked like you're playing, and like, this is where, like, it looked like Sean kept referring to it like it's like you're in the middle of Batman Returns in here, because it's all Art Deco. And
wow,
and it was a lot of fun to do that. And we wanted to try to do something in a unique space and merge the horror movie and industrial music. And it's the 40th anniversary of the Terminator, so that's why it was called Technoir, right? And
right on.
so we put a lot of energy into that. We learned kind of the hard way. That's a lot more work than it's a lot more work to do something totally without a venue or anything. Yeah. And buying, just little stuff like getting insurance and all that. Like, we didn't know. Like, we had to learn, basically jump out of the plane and figure it out on the way down. But so we did those kind of things, and those are really fun experiences, but are good things to kind of go through. But yeah, as hard of a kick in the nuts as 2023 was, I think we kind of came out with, it just puts so much in perspective, just what's important in life and all that. I have kids, the rest of the guys don't, but, going, and it was hard on my daughter, because she was friends with, Stacy, and then obviously knew Drew, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think the positive of it was, if there is a a silver lining. It's just that I think we all kind of had a renewed sense of, you know, not taking things for granted, you
Yeah.
know. And
It
so
definitely does put things into perspective. Um, yeah.
yeah. So I think I mean, bad things will happen, but yeah, I think I think about this sometimes, like how much did this consciously affect what Mercenary 2 sounds like versus one? And it is funny because it is a bit of a there's more humor and it feels a little more lighthearted to me, even though I guess lyrically it's not. But
Yeah.
I
It's
don't know
got
if
some
that
pretty
was like a
intense lyrics.
psychological
Yeah.
subconscious thing that creeped in or not. Like on Life Wild, like that, I want to fight these son of a bitches,
Yeah.
and just goofy samples like that like I
Yeah.
don't think we would have done on part one. It's like we're too serious for that nonsense back
Yeah.
then. And but I think, going forward, I think and that's a big ethos of industrial. There has to be that weird, quirky humor to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Well, I think you guys have come through this better people. My heart
Oh,
goes out
thanks,
to
man.
Sean and the rest of the gang. Uh, this is dealing with loss is not easy. I mean,
No.
and we've had a lot of it the last few years. It's like 2016 all over again. Fucking
Yeah.
losing people,
Yeah.
So, but
Well, yeah, and life goes on. I mean,
yeah,
that's the the sun does rise again, and
yeah. And
I
hopefully
think
we put a better footprint on the planet after we experience something like that.
yeah, and and it is I think at least I can't speak for Stacy, but at least for Drew, he was so excited to some of the people we were working with. I mean, Drew is like the biggest Nine Inch Nails fan that ever walked the earth. So the fact Martin Atkins did that remix was just, and I got to take him down to the museum and meet Martin and all that. And,
Awesome.
so it's cool to carry this stuff on,
Yeah,
for the sake of the fact that like, I know if he were here, he would be cheering this all on and that kind of, you know.
well, our hearts to Drew's family and Anastasia's family, and it's yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you for sharing.
yeah, I guess if I were to have any advice for anybody who has a you know those kind of sudden tragedies like that, lean on your friends, man. I think it can be really easy to kind of act like people can't relate to you,
Yeah.
and I remember Sean and I talked a lot about that because after
Mm.
something like that happens, we in strange ways we both, people weren't really sure how to talk to him, like, and yeah, I remember feeling that a little bit, like after Drew, you know, and but I also at the same time, like it can be easy to have that become isolating and not want to be around people, and try to not have embrace your friend, hang, because like just it's not necessarily that you forget them, but you do that kind of life goes on aspect, like you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
um it's a lot easier to do that when you have people around you than kind of going down to the
Maybe
bottom of
that's
a bottle or something like that,
right. Right. Maybe that's the positive side of the increased tragedy that we go through sometimes, is that it does help remove the barriers between people. It is, if everybody's going through sort of the same thing, it's a little easier not to be isolated about it.
Yeah, you're not
That
alone.
may
And
be I can be a little perverse in my digging for silver linings sometimes, but sometimes the dark clouds really require a pickaxe to find them. Um,
yeah,
but
that's a good way to put it.
but
um
yeah,
I think yeah, and it's funny looking back. We were, I guess, talking earlier. I stopped drinking like 4 years ago, and I think probably if I was still a drinker and had to go through all this, it wouldn't have worked out as well. I would have definitely done damage to my liver. And
yeah,
so but yeah, I think when I look back on that year, kind of when that happened, I think just, you know, spitballing ideas about movies and like just spending that time. We didn't make millions and millions of tracks, but I think that had a lot to do with just kind of all of, and I don't want to say it was just me, it was all probably six or seven of us that just, just kind of hung out like this industrial men's club a little bit. But that's valuable time.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's good for us to have that with each other. I mean, honestly, I think that's one of the things I've really kind of clung to going through the different tragedies and stuff that I've been through, and is that I'm not alone, and I want to make
Yeah.
sure people are aware that they're not alone either. And so that's a thank you for sharing that. I know that wasn't easy,
Yeah.
and we really
Oh,
appreciate you
well,
being able to talk
it's
about
funny.
that.
Yeah. Well, I think it is good to talk,
Yeah,
because it's like I don't want to. It's funny. It's funny. It kind of surprises me how it doesn't bother me so much to talk about that stuff as much as I would have thought it would have.
yeah,
I think it's in some ways it's kind of cool to I could think of the funny things Drew and Stacy did, and it makes me smile just like it did before,
yeah.
and
That's where
and
it's at.
and so yeah, no, it's I think it's definitely it's easier to talk about that stuff than I would have expected.
Yeah, and I think that's in part to do with the fact that the whole world's been dealing with the bullshit that we have for as long as we have.
Yeah, right.
There now there's a silver lining that's hard to pick for. I mean, honestly,
Uh,
Joey, you were going to ask something about the advertising world, I think.
Yeah, you did touch on
well,
this earlier. You talked about your experience with the advertising world, but working with controversial campaigns that shape public opinion. Tell us about these campaigns a little bit more in depth.
yeah. Well, I can talk. It's funny when I first started writing this stuff, I still had NDAs that were in effect. Well, the one that really I talk a lot about that really kind of inspired the track "Bastards of the World" on Mercenary Part One was I got approached. This is when I was an independent consultant at this point, but I got approached by a gun manufacturer who wanted to make an AR-15 specifically for kids or for young shooters, and the idea wasn't and the reality of the product was it actually was like they had a patent on a trigger that like if grandpa's taking the grandkid out to learn to shoot, like one of the most common accidents that can happen is that kid accidentally shoots the gun not realizing it's
Yeah,
well, this thing had a I don't know, I'm not a gun guy, but it had some sort of patent on the trigger that made it safe. Well, they didn't care about that. What they wanted, and the AR-15s are, I guess, they're smaller, so they're easier to hold. So that's
yeah,
why, a kid would have them. But they didn't care. What they wanted was that controversy. They wanted, Rachel Maddow and every single progressive person just screaming about these idiots making this gun for kids because they also make bullets. And every time there's a flare up on gun rights things, they sell a ton more ammunition.
yeah,
And that was the whole point of this product was, and my job was to do targeting to make sure that everybody in the writing rooms of those channels were getting bombarded with product ads for this
yeah,
thing. They didn't really even give a shit if they sold the gun itself.
yeah,
um I didn't take that project. I didn't do it, but
yeah,
and that gun company never did bring that product to market. There's some, I guess, some gun law things that came about, but that kind of stuff, Joey, is the kind of thing that happens. And I think it's
yeah,
important. And then the news will run. And I think it's important. If I had any message, it's that anytime you're seeing it, you have to ask that, is this trying to provoke me or piss me off?
yeah.
Like, think of that before we did a campaign for, do you remember when Nike had the campaign where Colin Kaepernick read it was supposed to be an anniversary. I was involved in
Yeah.
that a little bit.
Hmm.
And Colin himself didn't even want to have any sort of recognition that was him doing the thing. He just wanted to read. It was like Nike celebrating an anniversary or something. Well, Nike knew that. I mean, I know this. Like they'd done the research. They knew that, hey, this issue with the police, that's tends to be very a hot point in like rural areas with conservative people. But their buyers were all younger liberal, younger urban people that tended to trend liberal. And
Yeah.
the data showed that the thing that would create their political.
Oh my God, are we getting hobbled for talking about the wrong subject?
well,
Very good.
You
well,
kind
what
of froze there
happened
a little
was,
bit. You kind of
what
froze there
happened
for a
was,
second. Yeah.
oh shoot, did I? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Can you
you
hear me?
did. I'm like, oh my God, damn it.
Oh, where did I leave off?
So you were just Joey, do you have it?
He was just talking about being hobbled, I believe, and
No, that was me.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, so 2018 is when that campaign launched. So that was like in the height of, the Me Too thing was kind of in
Yeah.
swing. Black Lives Matter hadn't really reached its fervor pitch, but it's picking up. And a lot of brands were seeing that, like, hey, people were, if you can be part of a cultural event, like that's like gold for share price and stuff.
Yeah.
And so Nike knew all this. They put that out. They kind of let it creep into their social media that was Colin Kaepernick.
Hmm.
And Fox News and everyone lit it up, and you'd see the videos of people burning their Nikes. And I'll tell you what, at the end of that year, Nike's cap was up $20 billion, and a
Yeah.
lot of it was on the heels of that. But they deliberately knew they were going to piss off this crowd, and it would galvanize like this younger liberal urban audience to want to wear Nikes. And
Yeah.
right, you take the issues or out of it. I just think you're kind of being played a little bit by some of
Well,
these
I mean, that's the whole
advertisements.
purpose of
And
advertising, really, is to
yeah, I mean, it's
just
one
to
thing when
pull on the
it's
heartstrings. But it's weird seeing the change in what they're using to create that dynamic. And
right.
sex sells for the longest time.
Yeah,
Now it's
yeah,
murder
it's
sells, and well, controversy and tension and polarity sells,
right.
and
And it seems like it was right around 2015 that tide turn changed. It was, before that, it's like, well, if you use this dishwasher detergent, your neighbors will think you're more European. Or if
yeah,
you drink this beer, the hot
yeah,
girls will like you.
yeah,
And you're right. It became more of a, well, if you drink this
it's
beverage, that means that you're not racist. And,
yeah, and and you drink this one and you are, it's like,
right.
oh
And,
my God, yeah,
but there's
the
very
whole
much,
zeitgeist shifted on its fucking axis
yeah.
back
So a
around it.
lot of that stuff was, and by the way, people are subject to more advertising messagings now than they
Than
were 20
ever
years
before,
ago.
yeah.
And, and I thought when we started writing the mercenary stuff, I was kind of motivated. And it's funny because now we're a few years later. I kind of thought about from the standpoint of like, hey, my kids got to grow up in this world,
Yeah.
and like I do think we people do have more anxiety issues, and there are more mental health challenges, and I think in some ways, a lot of that has to do with this kind of enragement equals engagement ad
Yeah.
strategy. I mean,
Yeah,
people,
it's
when they're
definitely
wound up
amped
and
up.
pissed off, buy
Oh,
more,
dude, I
that
feel it in
they
myself
consume
all the
different.
fucking time, man. It's like I gotta limit what's coming into my head because some of this shit is
Yeah,
off so bad. I, it, yeah,
right.
it's refreshing to see an artist out there with that sort of in-depth understanding
Oh,
of your subject matter to be able to kind of rail against it a little bit. So thank you for that. I mean,
oh,
I've
yeah.
always considered commercial advertising has always been kind of a hobby of mine, trying to pick things apart,
Oh, right on.
where they come from, and it used to be, like, oh yeah, this sports cream is sponsored by the by coaches of professional football, hockey, and soccer. It's like, well, that means some professional football coach may have endorsed it at one point, and then hockey coaches and soccer doesn't mean they're all professional. And just pull
Sure.
apart some of the linguistics of it to find out where the lies are and where the push and the spin is,
Yeah.
and it's kind of gone from subtle manipulation to real blatant
Well,
shit. And
there's a good quote I heard that, a lot of the meat, they don't want you to think, they want you to feel. It's
yeah,
like pro wrestling. Like
yeah,
I want to get a reaction out of you because news is very, I mean, I remember doing this.
yeah.
We would very much at the upfronts in New York, um, very much there would be, here's who we're targeting, and some of those like Viacom and stuff would be told, these are the stories you need to run, and
Yeah,
I mean, implicitly, like this is what you
yeah,
focus on, and you're seeing it now with pharma a lot. I could see kind of what's going on, but I was going to tell you what I think is interesting. So I have a stepson that's in his, he's 23 and my daughter's 11, and I think there's like a cultural evolution happening because like my daughter, um she's got like a force field of like I think kids bullshit detectors are going to get better and better. I don't think
oh yeah,
I
for
think what's going to
sure.
happen is like there's an evolution where they're a little savvier than guys in our generation, and I'm really happy to see that makes
Oh
me
yeah,
like I'm encouraged by the future. We're kind of stuck between those generations, I feel
yeah.
like, and
But yeah, no, yeah, listening to lyrically to some of the stuff on the part two. Yeah, just earworm stuff, and it's
oh,
fucking awesome.
thanks.
So I really appreciate that. Dave, what's your earliest memory of being moved by art?
Oh, that's a good question. Art in any medium, like
Art in any
music.
medium.
You know what, man? I think I would have to say, and this dates me, is my some of my earliest memories are when Thriller was out, and it was like the whole world freaking was obsessed with Michael Jackson. You probably
Oh
remember
yeah,
that.
I remember
And
that.
I
Oh yeah.
remember I remember you used to be able to rent the Thriller video. Remember that?
Oh
And they had
yeah.
like that
Oh my
whole
God. Yeah, the fucking
and
video store. Yeah.
I remember watching that, and they had the whole how they made it. And
hmm
I was really fascinated by that as a kid. Like, and it occurred to me like this was somebody made this. This wasn't just
Yeah.
like this video fell out of the sky. Like
Right.
artisans came and put this thing together, and it scared the shit out of me as a little kid. But it I think that probably, now that you mentioned it, and then when I think about it, that's where my head goes, is probably watching that making a Thriller.
That's fucking awesome. Yeah. No, I kind of had the same the making of Aliens, and
Yeah.
you know, I felt
Did you
like
go
that was
see the
sort of
remake, or did you see
not
the
yet.
There's like a
No.
4 hour one. Is that
or
it?
not remake? It came out in they put it out in theaters
Oh,
again, and
Romulus?
Oh yes, I no, I didn't go see that, but I did see it originally, and I was doing interior design for clubs when I got a copy of one of my friends used to do bootleg video stuff, and we had all kinds of stuff before it was actually available. We had Army of Darkness before it was released in theaters,
oh
uh,
wow,
but he had this video he had put together, a deluxe thing for Aliens that had the H.R. Giger making of thing, and
sure,
watching them work on the set. It was sort of like an advanced course in interior design and in monster making. So I was doing interior club design at the time, and it was absolutely valuable for me at that point.
oh that's cool. Well,
And
they did such a good job on that first Aliens of making use. And, this is not these are
yeah,
because Sean knows everything there is to know about movies. How they made such good, clever use of not a lot of space, and
yeah,
it's and now I watch it, and I know those things. But yeah, they what
yeah.
I was to say, Joey, is they did another run of putting the original Aliens in theaters, and
Mhm.
it was like last year, and sound remastered and everything. It was cool. I didn't
Yeah.
get to see Aliens in the theaters, so
Yeah,
we'll
I own
see.
it. I got the 4K of
Was
it.
fucking terrifying.
I was in my
Oh,
mom's
I'm
room when I
sure.
saw it.
Yeah. And Paul, what's his name? God damn it. Paul
Paul
Razor.
Reiser.
Paul
Yeah.
Reiser, yeah. Yeah, that scene was incredible. Yeah, so when my friend did the video, he had gone in and spliced in all of the cut scenes to go back into the movie. So there were two death
Oh
scenes
wow.
for that character in there. Um, it was pretty cool. This back in the early 90s,
Oh
this
wow.
stuff. And yeah. And that Army of Darkness we had, it was funny because I had given a copy of it to a friend for a birthday present. And so we watched that stuff religiously, right? And so he wanted to, go in when the movie actually hit the theaters. We went in to see it, and he's trying to call out some of the stuff, as it's happening. But the version that we had was sort of the version that De Laurentiis sent to Universal to say, okay, this is what we've got. And Universal went, that, no, this, change, this,
Wow.
and reshoot the entire fucking ending. And so we had a different version of it. So, and there's like little catchphrases and stuff in the original thing that they had sent to Universal that didn't end up in the movie. So my friend's like sitting there trying to call stuff out and just falling on his face because it's not in
Yeah.
there anymore. And he's like, "What the fuck?" So
Oh man.
and we were so blown away to see how they changed the ending because we were absolutely unaware they were going to change the ending. And
Yeah. How I know that there was an alternate ending, and now I can't remember what it.
the alternate ending is he takes one too many drops and he wakes up in the future and goes completely insane. And it is the
Uh,
absolute perfect ending for that fucking trilogy, hands down. It is. I mean, because and then you've got the Bruce Campbell laughter, maniacal laughter going on. And
huh.
and like the scene with the tiny Bruces, or the tiny Ashes,
Yeah.
that was much longer, much more Three Stooges. Yeah, it was an incredible thing. But then that was when I learned, yeah, if you've got an advanced copy of something that hasn't been finished yet, probably don't go to the theater expecting to see what you've been seeing. And so
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool. That's a cool story.
fun times, man. Yeah. So as a fan yourself, what are some of the shows that stand out as pivotal for you?
Like live shows.
Hmm.
Um, David Bowie in Nine Inch Nails '95 was a life changing experience.
Yeah, Joey's
I
got
think.
tickets for that.
Oh, the nails. Yeah, we're all going to that.
Yeah.
That's a glitch mode family outing. But the I would say that one of my favorite. I saw Bowie a lot, and I saw him in 2000 as a fan club only show at the Roseland Ballroom in New York,
Oh, wow.
and that was right when he got Earl Slick back in the band.
Oh my God, man.
And
Wow.
that was pretty awesome. And actually, another one that like was really legit life, and I didn't see Ministry live until the Animasa Tisamina tour.
Oh,
Just
wow.
it just never. And I heard that that tour in particular was just they're running the PAs way louder than theirs because people are telling me this. I saw it in Milwaukee, and people who went to the Chicago show were saying the same thing. But just the sheer power of that. And that was the last tour he did with Paul, and hopefully we'll have another one coming up. But
I hope so. Yeah.
I was just that show legitimately blew me away. And that was when let's see, that was um yeah, Mike Scasio would have been on guitar on that,
Mhm.
Paul Barker. God, who was the guy playing? He had I can't remember who the other guitar player was, but it was just because it's so damn ear-splittingly loud. It just the only other loud the second loudest show I ever saw was Judas Priest, and
Wow.
um, that was when the Ripper guy, not when Rob Halford was gone and that other guy came in. It was the
Yeah.
same thing, like he just ran it hot, but that was it just really kind of like changed how I felt about live music. And I'd seen a lot of loud, heavy stuff before that, but
Yeah.
no, it was awesome. It was cool because Al was like pretty healthy. I mean, he got kicked heroin at that point
Yeah.
and was
That's
kind of
fucking
a
awesome.
vibrant guy.
I think one of the loudest ones I think I've seen was Neurosis.
Oh
Just
wow.
holy shit. I'm like, oh my God, wah. And JG Thurwell with Fetus. That was that was an fucking brilliant show. And pretty loud. And I broke my nose at that show in the pit, and almost died. Fucking
Oh wow.
Fetus. Yeah. My sinuses were filling up with blood, but it didn't break. When it broke, the blood all stayed inside. I didn't have a bloody nose immediately, and started getting dizzier and dizzier and dizzier, and ended up going to the downstairs bathroom at the Phoenix and standing in front of the mirror. I'm like, oh my God, I got to sneeze. And I'm like, I don't want to sneeze. I don't want to sneeze. But I did. Blood everywhere.
Oh
And
wow.
one of my friends
Well,
was
I
down
didn't
there.
have
I'm
any
like,
experiences like that, but
I'm like, go get Rick. So I saw the doctor the next day, and he's like, no, you're lucky you sneezed. You wouldn't have woke up in the morning if you hadn't sneezed.
oh
And I'm like,
geez.
yeah, Fetus. Oh my God. So advice for the masses navigating this weird timeline.
Well, I think the big thing is, at least from my perspective, what I would say is be very. I see a lot on social media. Just first ask yourself: is whatever I'm reading or watching, is it trying to piss me off? You know, kind of like it's like if a magician or if you know how the magic is done, it doesn't.
Yeah,
I think that would do people a lot of good to just before you react, like, is this thing designed? Because like, and
yeah,
that doesn't matter what your beliefs are. I just think there's so much. It's much more valuable to get you wound up about something that is to make you happy, and I think that that's the biggest thing. And like I said, I just see it in my kids that I think the generation coming up is going to have some built-in antennas for that, you know?
yeah. I hope so, man. I really do. And it's sort of like the purpose of what we do here with this show is the internet, social media in general can be such a fucking negative place. We want to be something positive in the maelstrom, and it means a lot to us to have guests on that kind of
Oh
feel
yeah,
that
for sure, man.
and contribute actively to that being a part of the world. So, dude, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or promote today?
Just well that we have Mercenary Notes Part 2. That's live on Bandcamp, derisioncult.com, all the streaming services. Thanks a lot to everyone for checking it out. Um, Follow us on face. I'm getting very good at posting everywhere now, so follow us
There
on
you go.
Facebook. We will be announcing dates here in the next probably the next few weeks. So yeah, more to come on that front. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, guys.
Right on. Now, and just a question for two vinyl junkies sitting here in front of you.
Yeah.
Are 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 these perhaps going to get released as maybe we could do
Yeah. Um,
a vinyl thing with the both of the parts?
Sean and I talk a lot about that because it used to be it took so long to print vinyl and the
Yeah,
lead times are getting a lot shorter. So I think it's becoming more we've talked about some ideas or mixed combinations of kind of glitch mode things.
yeah,
There's some of that stuff, the Justin Broderick stuff that we've been kind of kicking around. Could we do some sort of cool avalanche meets glitch mode thing?
yeah.
As far as these on vinyl, we'll kind of see how they do. We got,
I
we got
can see some cool packaging opportunities for
oh yeah, well it's so fun
you
working
know,
with Jim on stuff like that, and he
right?
loves getting crazy with it. So
Oh, fucking A, man. Awesome. Dave, thank you so much for sharing time with us today. It's an
yeah, hey, thanks for
honor to
having me,
meet you
guys.
finally. And
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you and Sean and the guys in Seattle. And
Oh, I
I will
love it.
absolutely be there with bells on. Kiddos, you can find the new EP on Bandcamp and at derisioncult.com. Okay, witches and warlocks. This brings us to the end of another episode dedicated to our dear friend Jason Lupo, dedicated as well to Drew Hulbert and Anastasia Payne, and to Anya's dad from Ayatoya, who passed
Yeah,
recently.
I saw
So,
that.
So Anya's just starting out on the first of her tour. We want to wish her luck. Please continue to donate to Levi's fundraiser. We have it on our pages and on Facebook and whatnot. So we appreciate your help with that. Please be good to each other. There are sparkling jewels all around us if you take the time to look. Please allow yourself the time to look and to see them. If you need help, please let someone know. You are never as alone as you feel. I promise you that. You are never as alone as you feel. Love, hugs, and belly rubs, and cheers.